What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Canadian Football Fanatics. Blake and Cole coming at you guys once again for another Canadian Football Fanatics weekly show. We are 1 week away from real football, folks, and so excited. But first, Blake and I are back tonight to do our season predictions as well as joined by Nik Kowalski to talk some BC Lions. But I'll send it over to my co-host, Blake. Thanks for joining me tonight, buddy. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good, Cole. Yeah, we're officially 1 week tonight from the start of the CFL season. June the 6th, Winnipeg and Montreal will kick things off. So it's definitely exciting times here in CFL land.
It is, man. It is. Obviously, last week we were able to take in a little bit of preseason. Not too sure how much you were able to watch, Blake. I know you're busy, but was able to watch the Lions game. Then obviously I was busy on Saturday, so I wasn't able to take in much. But just super cool to have football back on the TV and stuff like that. This week I'll be able to enjoy all the games. I believe there's is it four on Friday? Starting at
All four
4
tomorrow.
p.m. Pacific, if I'm not mistaken. So I'll be getting off work in perfect time to hopefully make it home for kickoff. And then obviously our BC Lions host the Edmonton Elks at 7 o'clock our time, which is super exciting, Blake, because obviously we're going to see the starters tomorrow. And then, like you mentioned, we are 1 week away from the CFL season kicking off. We have made it, folks. We have made it back to the CFL season. Just super excited to be coming to you guys on a weekly basis talking CFL football, especially when the season is here. We're talking about real things, what's happening in the weeks to come, instead of all of kind of what's in the future and what's to come and all these predictions and all these previews. Next week, we talk about the real things. We talk about BC at Calgary. We talk about all the other week one matchups. Blake and I will probably have to start our maybe our season wager or something like that for our weekly picks or something like that for the season. But folks, that is TBD, and that is for next week's show. On tonight's show, Blake and I will be doing our season prediction, like I mentioned. So we'll be going through our East West, as well as our awards, MOP, most outstanding Canadian, most outstanding defensive player, as well as passing, rushing, and receiving leader. We will also be going through the BC Lions schedule week by week and predicting wins and losses, which will resulting in the BC our prediction, I guess, in what we think the Lions will finish this season. Hopefully, Blake and I aren't going to be the same, but I'm interested to see. It should be a good time for anybody that's tuning in tonight in the chat. Please feel free to
20 and
interact with.
0 in a Grey Cup.
It's coming. I'll tell you, it's gonna. Mine's my predictions are definitely gonna be a little bit different than years past, except for a few. But we will get into that down the road here tonight. Before we get into it, folks, if you guys are tuning in, like I mentioned, feel free to interact with us in the chat on Twitter, anywhere that you guys are consuming the podcast show here tonight. Interact with us if you guys disagree with maybe where we have, if you're a Montreal fan, where we have Montreal, let us know why you think that maybe we're wrong, or maybe we could be proven otherwise. So feel free to interact with us in the chat, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Blake, before I throw it back over to you, buddy, we've had some pretty good traction over on the Instagram. I believe we're up over 300 followers now, Blake.
Let's go.
If you didn't know, um, but the YouTube is falling behind, slacking a little bit, which I know is a little bit harder because people are on Instagram scrolling. It's a lot easier to follow. That being said, we do have some stats, Blake, because I'm able to see the accounts on YouTube. I believe it's 75% of the people that take in our content aren't subscribed. So please, folks,
Wow.
subscribe if you are able to. Blake and I would greatly appreciate that as well.
Smash the like button.
Smash the like button. We have 300 followers on Instagram and only 166 subscribers. First and foremost, I just don't like the number 66. Bad number. So let's get off that, folks. As well as let's try to get to 200 subscribers. Let's not try to get on pace with the Instagram. Let's try to get to 200 subscribers here in maybe the next month or so. Maybe by, let's say, Canada Day or something like that. Let's try to push the subscriber count a little bit more. If you guys could, that would be super duper and greatly appreciated by Blake and I. and all just the hard work that's going to go into this season. So, Blake, looking forward to tonight, buddy. How you feeling about our prediction show? This is our, feet to the fire. People are going to hold, remember you picked BC first in, what is it, May 30th. Are you excited for tonight, buddy?
Yeah, for sure. No, I truly don't believe. I wish I could say that the Lions are going to go 20-0 and win the Grey Cup, but nobody's had a perfect season in the CFL ever, so that's not realistic. But spoiler alert, I think when we get there, I'll be picking the Lions to at least host the Western Final, which means finishing first in the West, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
Absolutely, buddy. So, I think without further ado, Blake, let's get into it. We've rambled enough. Let's get into the show tonight. Let's start in the East and let's save the West for last, the best for last. Blake, I'm going to pass it over to you first. I will let you go. You can go first to fourth, fourth to first. Maybe spend 30, 60 seconds, maybe explaining why you have that team here, and just you can have the floor, buddy.
Okay, let's see. I think I'm gonna go fourth to first. And in last place, unfortunately missing the playoffs altogether this year, is the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Unfortunately for the Tiger Cats, there's just too many question marks for me to pick them to finish anywhere higher than fourth. We don't know what Bo Levi's going to look like. Is he going to be the 2018 Bo Levi, or is he going to be last year's Bo Levi? Are they going to go with Taylor Powell as the starter and just leave Bo Levi as the backup? Unfortunately for Tiger Cats fans, we just don't know that yet. So I'm going to pick the Tiger Cats to finish in last in the Eastern Division and miss the playoffs. In third place, I'm going to go with the Ottawa Red Blacks. So the Red Blacks making their way back to the playoffs after missing the last couple of seasons. They made some really good additions. Their draft was really good. Dom Rhymes is coming over. They, of course, have Drew Brown as their new starter, the formerly backup quarterback in Winnipeg. When he showed in Winnipeg, when he started a couple times with Zach Claros injured, he was really good for the Bombers. In second place, I have the Toronto Argonauts. I think the Argos are going to fall a little. They're not going to be 16-2 like they were last year. And the whole Chad Kelly situation, everyone knows what's going on with that. But I think the Argos are just too good not to be hosting at least an Eastern semifinal in 2024. And in first, I'm going to go with the defending Grey Cup champions, the Montreal Alouettes, as truthfully, I just think they've gotten better than they were last year. And let's not forget that last year they actually, by most CFL season standards, they didn't have that good of a year. I believe they finished 11-7 or something like that, but all 11 wins were against below 500 teams in the Eastern and the Western Division, and all seven of their losses before that Eastern Final and the Grey Cup game were against above 500 teams. So I think they've gotten better, and that's why they will win the East Division in 2024.
So, Blake, if I heard you correctly, you had the Hamilton Ticats in fourth, the Ottawa Red Blacks in third, the Toronto Argonauts in second, and the Montreal Alouettes to win the Eastern Division once again.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, so to save the folks a little bit of rambling, Blake and I did predict the same. We didn't actually talk about it, which is kind of funny, but I'll go one step further because I did predict some records. So I won't ramble on too much, but I agree with all of what Blake said. So starting in fourth place, I have the Hamilton Tiger Cats at 6-12. Um, just don't like the roster overall. I think losing a guy like Simone Lawrence, although he was getting up there in age, a guy that's pivotal in that locker room, a guy that's pivotal as a leader in that room. I know he's still going to be around in some capacity with the team. So I would imagine it's still kind of he would have an effect on the room, especially knowing those guys, being able to see them. I would imagine living in Hamilton this season. So I would imagine Simone will still have an effect on the team. But that being said, don't love the receiving core and the weapons that Bo Levi Mitchell is throwing to. Um, you know, I think Tim White is a bona fide superstar. Obviously, I think that's nothing to be argued. But outside of that, I don't love their receiving core overall. Obviously, James Butler, for my money, is probably a top 2 or 3 back in the CFL. So I enjoy James Butler, but not too sure how I feel about the offensive line as well. So just overall, I'm not too high on the Hamilton Tiger Cats overall. So 6-12 in fourth place. And then in third place, I have actually the Ottawa Red Blacks, 8-10. I think they'll be much improved this year. The addition of Drew Brown, a number one receiver, and Dominic Rhymes. Obviously, we're very familiar with him. So I think excuse me, they'll be a very competitive team. But I think um, they're just when it comes to a few of those matchups versus Montreal, maybe Toronto after maybe week 9 and 10 when they get Chad Kelly back. No offense to um um I
Oh gosh,
excuse I
I'm
forget
I'm
it's
forgetting his name too. Uh oh
if
goodness,
anybody's in the chat, Cam Dukes, Cameron
Cameron
Dukes.
Dukes. Thank you.
If no offense to Cameron Dukes, but why I have the Argos, I guess was a while ago there. I have the Red Blacks 8-10. I have the Toronto Argonauts 9-9. I think that it's with the Argos offensive and defensive line, which I think is the strength of the team. I think for my money they have the best offensive line in the CFL. On the defensive side, I really like their defensive line as well. Familiar faces, obviously Sean Oakman. Getting Jake Seresna and the Curly Gittins trade obviously weakens your offense but strengthens your defense even more. So I like their offensive and defensive line, and I think will be a reason why they're going to be able to be competitive and still win a lot of games this year. The addition of Kadeem Carey as well. I don't think Kadeem Carey is totally cooked. I think there's still some gas left in the tank, if you will, in Kadeem Carey. Some tread on the tire, if that's what you want to call it, especially with that offensive line there in Toronto. So I think it's very possible that Cam Dukes could get them to 4-5 by the time Chad Kelly gets back, or maybe even 5-4, right? But at worst, I would think 3-5, or I guess 4-5, excuse me, 3-6. So if they're able to do that, I think Chad Kelly can win them another 4 games, right? So at minimum. So I think that's just why I trust them overall more than the Ottawa Red Blacks. I think the Red Blacks have still a little bit more to prove to me overall. So at second, like I said, 9-9, the Toronto Argonauts as well, and then the reigning, defending,
Hey, tough
undisputed
champion.
Grey Cup champions, Montreal Alouettes. I have them at 12-6. I really think I know there's a lot of Cody Fajardo haters out there. I think he's going to gain some confidence from this. I know he didn't have the greatest season last year, and you can easily just go to his stats and kind of see that for yourself. But I think getting the monkey off your back and winning a Grey Cup as the starting quarterback, not as a guy that's behind the starter or just supporting. Um, I think that's going to do good for his confidence. And people say, confidence is a hell of a drug. So I think Cody Fajardo will only get more confident from that. Obviously, they have Canadian stars, Keon Julian Grant, Jalen Philpott, and Dubois, obviously leading the defense. So, and obviously, whatever is going on with Sean Lemon appealing his suspension or not. But I just expect them to take care of business as usual, and then I think just to call a spade, I guess, if you will, Blake. The Eastern Division is definitely the weaker of the two divisions, and I think they'll be able to get a few more of those wins. Montreal against maybe Hamilton, Ottawa, where maybe the game's close late, but Montreal's championship pedigree, them kind of being a more veteran team, will definitely get them to pull out the win on the other side. So Blake and I had the same. I got Hamilton Tiger Cats 6-12, Ottawa Red Blacks 8-10, Toronto Argonauts 9-9, Montreal Alouettes 12-6. Blake, let's head out west, and let's start with you, buddy. You can go first, or fifth, I guess, to first if you'd like.
Yeah, and quickly, I'll just say if the viewers hear some voices in the background, my son Jackson is being camera boy today, so that's what you're hearing in the background. But as far as the predictions go, I'm gonna go with the Calgary Stampeders in last place, and I'll make it really simple there, Cole. Jake Maier's their quarterback, and no offense to Stamps fans, there's a few of you that I really like, but Jake Maier stinks. So that's why the Calgary Stampeders are going to be in last place. In fourth place, and I know I said that in third, the Ottawa Redblacks were going to make the playoffs. I think I might change that a bit. There might be a crossover this season, but I'm going to go with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. The Corey Mace effect, some of the players they've added this year. I really like what the Riders are doing in Regina, but unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be enough to get them any higher than fourth place in the Western Division. In third place, and this will probably catch a bunch of people by surprise, I'm going to go with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I actually think the Bombers are going to regress after their 4 or 5 year dominance of the Western Division. I don't think they're going to be as good this year. A lot of their key players, including their quarterback, Zach Claros, are getting older. Yes, I know they still have guys like Dalton Schoen, Brady Oliveira, but they've also lost a lot of guys in the offseason. In second place and hosting a playoff game this year would be the Edmonton Elks. I really like what the Elks have done. Of course, getting Curly Gittins Jr., McLeod Bethel Thompson, their Canadian draft, Joel DeBlanco, of course, with the first overall pick. I really like what the Elks have done, and I think they're going to reward their fans with, after not having a win in I think it was 4 years or something like that, including COVID, going into last year. Cole, they're going to reward them with a home playoff game. And in first place, what I would call right now to be the Grey Cup favorites is the Grey Cup hosts and the team that no surprise is yours and mine favorite team, the BC Lions. I'm gonna pick them in first. What the Lions have done, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Of course, they lost Matthew Betts last year, but they add Christian Covington. They added a few more bodies that we saw up in Cramp. On the offensive side of the ball, Travis Fulgham, Alexander Hollins, Javon Katoy, with Rhymes and Hatcher. Rhymes, of course, leaving and Hatcher being out for a majority of the year. There's going to be more names that are able to step up. And I think that's a really scary thought for the rest of the CFL.
Dad, can you hold the phone all the time? You want to aim it? Okay, okay,
It,
okay.
sorry, it is indeed, folks. Blake with a shocker at 3, I believe, and drops the Winnipeg Blue Bombers to 3. I love it. Hot takes are welcome, and I love that that's your opinion and you're voicing it, Blake. That's I'm glad that we weren't the same as well because Saskatchewan. I'll just I guess I'll start. I did have Calgary and Saskatchewan, fifth and fourth. Now, I won't spend too much time on Calgary. Like you mentioned, Jake Maier is their quarterback. Obviously, big shout out to Malik Henry. Just thoughts and prayers,
Yeah,
man. Just a
devastating.
absolute, yeah, heartbreaker to hear once again. I believe another some sort of season-ending injury
Knee
once again,
injury, yeah,
patella or something like that. I saw.
something like
Just an absolute brutal injury to a guy who was from what we heard, just grinding his butt off to get back and compete once again as a pro athlete, and just probably something that I'd imagine was just a stunned silence at practice when everybody knows what kind of what he's been through the last 16 months or something like that. So just thoughts and prayers, man. But losing another weapon like that, Kadeem carries out. Didn't love what they were about last year. I think it's just time for Calgary to kind of take a step back. It was so long ABC, anybody but Calgary in the West. I think this is their time to kind of take a step back, reevaluate. I hope, maybe I guess I don't hope, but for Calgary fans' sake, I guess I would hope that they realize this season Jake Maier is not the guy, and they try to move off him once and for all. I thought that this past year that they would see once again they lose to the BC Lions in the West semifinal. Maybe they get the kind of the writings on the wall, if you will, that
I'm
Jake
ready
Mayer is
to
not our
put the
guy. He can't
camera
get us over the
down.
hump in the Western Division. Just not enough talent. Two, I feel like uh, too safe, maybe, if you will, if that's maybe even a right way to describe it, but just isn't willing to push the ball downfield in any way, and I just think kind of limits Calgary in that way. So I got Calgary in fifth at 5-13, actually, Blake, which will be the worst record actually in the CFL for my money this year is what I'm predicting. And then this next, I guess I'll just go 4-3 here, kind of together, Blake. I went ultimately with the Saskatchewan Roughriders at 4, as Blake drops out quickly, but Blake will join us back here, folks. I have the Saskatchewan Roughriders in fourth at 8-10. Super, super tricky, and definitely what was definitely the longest and most time-consuming decision that I had in my predictions this year. Went back and forth because I really enjoy Saskatchewan as a team. Um, I just ultimately think MBT will probably be the guy a little bit longer as Blake joins back. Blake, is what I was just saying about just kind of how I went back and forth with 4-3 here, and this was my toughest decision in the East and West predictions here. Um, Ultimately, what I went with, even though I'm not the biggest fan of him, I just went with the more confidence in MBT at quarterback. I really enjoy actually Trevor Harris as a quarterback. I think he's good for the CFL, but I'm not too sure if I can trust him long term if he can last the entire season at his
18
age,
games, absolutely.
coming off the injury that he just went through. The offensive line did get better, right? Obviously, they did get Jamarcus Hardrick over
Yeah.
from Winnipeg. So obviously they did get a little bit better, but not the greatest offensive line. AJ Ouellette will definitely help in that area. But I and folks, if anybody's maybe a skeptical, I've been a believer in Edmonton Elks since last year, Blake. I believe if you were a fan actually of the show at the time,
Mm-hmm.
I actually predicted the Edmonton Elks to finish third last year, folks, and that really came back and bit me in the behind. But I was a big time believer. I wasn't. I'm just not a big fan of Taylor Cornelius. I was always I think Trey Ford's going to be a come in and kind of turn the ship around kind of guy. Ultimately, he gets put in kind of late into the season. So it is what it is from that standpoint. But I just think the addition of MBT, their receiving core is pretty good. A guy like Kevin Brown running the ball, I think it's going to be a big time help. That defense is probably a little bit more question marks. You got a veteran like Lucas Purifoy, but other than that, a lot of unknowns on the defense. You mentioned Joel DeBlanco, but I don't have to sell that Edmonton Elks to you. Obviously, you believe that they're going to finish second. So um, it was a close decision for me, but ultimately I had to stick the Edmonton Elks once again in third place for the second year in a row. And maybe it was a little bit of maybe being gun shy from last year to be a little bit hesitant, excuse me. But um, I just think they're gonna be able to win some games this year, and I have them at 9-9, Blake. So I have them one win above the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I have another heartbreaker in Riderville, maybe another 1-6 slide after Labor Day or something. But I think the Riders are going to be competitive, and I could be very wrong, and this could be vice versa. It could be Saskatchewan in third because I think Saskatchewan very much could be a competitive team, and maybe we have 4 competitive teams in the West. In second place for the first time, the podcast is 2 years old, but I started doing season predictions on Twitter Spaces in 2021, and I had
The
still the
COVID
Winnipeg
year.
Blue Bombers in first. I have them in second place for the first time in I guess maybe my putting it out there in the world, in the ether. Um, I just think if not now, when for the BC Lions. Personally, Blake, I disagree with you a little bit slightly. I think they did lose some pieces, but if you look at that offense, it's pretty much held intact. Kenny Lawler, Dalton Schoen, Nick Dembski, Brady Oliveira, Zach Collaros. Um, if Brady Oliveira is going to put up anything close to what he did last year, I think that's going to just prolong Zach Collaros' career even more, just because one, Zach doesn't hold on to the ball overall too long. He tends to get out the ball quickly, but if they can feed Brady Oliveira into the later stages of Zach Collaros' career and not have to ride Zach Collaros, I think that even opens up that play action game even more for guys like Nick Dembski, Dalton Schoen to get downfield. And then you have a guy like Kenny Lawler who's probably arguably like maybe the I don't know if it's like hard to say like most forgotten about, but he's probably maybe like the most forgotten about best player at his position because I think people kind
Yeah,
of
for
forgot,
sure.
you know, he went to Edmonton. It was kind of a little bit quiet, right? But if you think about Kenny, like before COVID and stuff like that, even watching him last year, definitely rejuvenated with the Bombers. And I think the Bombers are going to be one heck of a ball club because of the young players that they have.
Oh, I think we might have lost Cole. Cole, are you
No,
there?
can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. I think we did drop out there, folks, for a second. So my apologies. Knock on wood, it's been a while, folks, but um, getting back to it, Winnipeg Blue Bombers 12-6 in second place. As long as they have Zach Collaros, Brady Oliveira, and those three-headed monsters that I named, Nick Dembski, Dalton Schoen, and Kenny Lawler catching passes, I think they're going to be a tough out in the Western Conference. And in first place for the first time, Blake, I have our BC Lions 13-5. Um, just I think, like I mentioned, if not now, when I think VA hopefully is able to duplicate what he did last season, statistic wise, just wins and losses wise, and that only helped the ball club even more. If I was to say maybe why am I a little bit worried? I guess I would just say maybe on the defensive line, getting to the passer in terms of pass rush, um, sacks, and getting to the quarterback opposed to uh, run defending, run stopping. So I have the BC Lions, like I mentioned, 13-5, one win uh, over the Winnipeg Blue Bombers for first place. I have that game in BC place going different. Dominic Rhymes doesn't get dragged down from behind this
Oh,
year. This year
man.
it's Keon Hatcher going to the house, hopefully, Blake, to win
Cole,
the Western
you know what?
Division.
If Dom Rhymes goes down when he makes that catch, I'm willing to bet that it was the BC Lions that would have gone to the Grey Cup last year. I think having to go to IG Field, that West final after what had happened the year before, was ultimately the detriment to the BC Lions and why they couldn't get over that hump for the second year in a row.
So I agree a little bit, but I'm gonna quickly, Blake, bring in Brian, big time fan of the show, obviously bringing the comments back once again, second weeks in a row. But
What's
he has
going
a few
on,
questions
Brian?
here, Blake. He says, "Where will Prukop land? I wonder. Maybe Calgary. I could see that, but I don't know if that's the answer in Calgary, just because I feel like
What's
he
he gonna
obviously
do?
proved that
QB
he's
sneak the ball 3 yards at a
yeah,
time?
he didn't prove to be a weapon passing the ball, and obviously it wasn't that much of a asset as a short yardage quarterback to why BC cut him. Maybe that's a mistake, but time will tell. But definitely Calgary could be a landing spot. Other names really don't come to mind. Honestly, he could be honestly sitting a year, being cut this late, this close to the season. Honestly, might be a year, or maybe he has to go down to the USFL or XFL or something like that to find another gig. But he says Edmonton is going to have to score a lot of points to win football games this year. That's a big ask. I think yes and no, but I think they can with MBT. Obviously, we've seen Curly Gittins, Eugene Lewis, um, Kevin Brown. I really like Kevin Brown running the ball. Obviously, big time question marks on that offensive line. But Brian also says Bombers lost a few key players. I agree. BC is a team to beat. So he agrees with you, Blake, about the key players that they lost. I agree. You know, Damari Houston, Jamarcus Hardrick, definitely big time players to lose. I believe Rasheed Bailey is another one. I believe kind of
Yeah.
a guy that contributors of theirs for recent years, the Great Cup runs. Um, I want to say they got a few guys coming back though. Like I feel like Wolotarski, like he's kind of been in the
He's
system.
good.
I feel like he's coming back, so he'll kind of step into that. I feel like that Eberhardt kind of for the BC Lions, like a guy that's been around for. I know
Yeah.
Eberhardt's only been around for last year, but a guy that's in that organization, in that fan base, players are high on, and people outside I think will see. So we also have John, actually a friend of the show, tuning back in. Says, happy to see you lads back at it. John, it's been a long off season, but we're excited. We've been going for about, I guess, about a month. Hey, Blake, about draft season. Hey, I know we were doing a few shows,
Yeah,
free agency, but weren't consistent. But
did the
John, is
combine
it
as well, but
combine as well? Right, correct. John, is it ever good to be back on a weekly basis? I think me and Blake have been going on a month now, so the grind is gonna start, Blake, from what we'll call it May to November. We'll see you in Grey Cup, folks.
yeah.
Blake and we'll say it now. We'll be doing a live show, folks. Just wait. But John also says, what do you guess the fan numbers on June 15th? I'm gonna go with 45,000. I'm gonna go 45K, Blake.
Okay, so I know that they've already went over 40,000. They opened the upper bowl, and I believe it's already over 40,000 sold. So, you know what, Cole? I think it'll be a sellout. They'll get over 50,000 for the
50.
home opening.
I love it. I love to hear it, Blake. So obviously, if you guys do the math, which Blake was just saying that they confirmed the numbers, but if you check the lower bowl, obviously the lower bowl is 27,000 for a sellout. Sold out the lower bowl. They opened the upper bowl for an additional 10,000 seats. That sold out, I believe, in under 24 hours. They opened up, I believe, was it another 10,000, if I'm not
I
mistaken,
think so,
after that.
yeah.
So not too sure if that sold out already, but if you this from what's already sold out, 37,000 has definitely been confirmed. I believe I saw the same thing that Blake did, about 40. So I'm gonna go with 45K because I think stuff happens sometimes, right? Obviously, people buy tickets, and I think it might be uh, you know I guess featured as a sellout coming into the game and stuff like that. That everybody bought tickets, but stuff happens. People aren't able to get here. A lot of those casual fans just coming over for the concert and stuff like that. That only paid $25 for an Upper Bowl ticket. That will say, maybe I can't make it. So I think probably in that 45, 48 range is what I'll go with. But if it's a sellout, Blake, I absolutely cannot wait, my friend. It is going to be an absolute party. Hope to see everybody there. John, if you're there, come say hi. Blake and I'll be there all morning. I believe I heard on the First and Now podcast, a little plug for upcoming guests, but I believe they said, I believe what is it, the tailgate or whatever that they're calling it,
Yeah.
um, starting at 10:30 a.m. if I'm not mistaken. So
AM? Jeez.
get there early, folks. It is going to be a good time. So, yeah, Brian says Shoveler's the X factor, I believe, in the peg. Yeah, interesting. I wanted to see how much they utilize them. Obviously, they're going to have some packages and stuff like that. But for my money, honestly, I'd be careful with that because I don't love the idea of kind of always bringing off your X factor in Zach Collaros, because let's not get it twisted, folks, that Zach had a great year last year. He just didn't have his MOP caliber year last year.
Yeah, no,
Obviously,
exactly.
interception numbers were up. He's getting older by all means, right? But I think Zach's game will definitely prolong him, and I think Strudler's a big time need, and I think he's definitely a guy that maybe use around the goal line, maybe inside the red zone, inside the 20-yard line. You can use him, but I'd be careful on kind of sprinkling him in, and because I don't believe him. I believe in him as a passer, right? Like I think he kind of proved that in the preseason game. If you go watch the preseason game, he was doing a lot of running around and kind of athletic stuff, but just same. It's kind of like same old Shoveler in a way, right? And nothing
Mm-hmm.
to slight the guy, but that's what he's cut his teeth in the professional game in, is kind of being an athletic guy. Obviously, he's if he went to the YMCA or the local turf field out here, he's throwing better than anybody out there. But in the CFL, I feel like he's just a below average passer in my opinion, which as a quarterback, that is your main duty. So Brian also says, great to see an owner that really cares in BC. Awesome to see. Yes, it is. Stay tuned, Brian. We're going to talk a little bit more about that when Nik Kowalski joins us in a little bit. So, Blake, let's get into our award winners and stuff before you got to get out of here, and then try to get through the line schedule as well. But that was a good one, Blake. We basically predicted the same, but you have the Bombers, Elks flopped, and yeah, the Bombers, Elks flopped. Let's do that. So we remember, Blake. No, I'm just kidding. But before we move on, folks, 81 people, Blake, tuning in here to the
Let's
show
go.
tonight.
Let's go.
Let's go on Twitter, on YouTube. Thank you guys so much. We, like I mentioned, greatly appreciated all the support by Blake
Smash
and
that
I.
like button.
Smash that like button. Folks, please head over to the Instagram. If you're on Twitter, subscribe to the YouTube channel. It'd be greatly appreciated. Let's get that up to 200 subscribers, please, by Canada Day. That's what, a little over a month away, I believe, or something like
Month
that.
away, yeah.
Let's push the subscriber count up to 200. We got a month, folks. That's less than 30. So that's like, one a day. I think that's reasonable. We got to push it. We're pushing out the content. You'll see us every week. So head on over to the YouTube, subscribe, Canadian Football Fanatics. When you guys do, press the notification bell. You guys will be notified every time Blake and I go live, every time we post some content here on the channel. Big breath, Blake. Let's get into it, my friend. MOP. I'm going to go first because I think we're going to go the same. I will not beat around the bush. Vernon Adams Jr. is going to win the MOP. I know you're kind of shocked, Blake, because I'm not self-admitted, not the I wouldn't even say like the biggest fan is the right word. I feel like a realist is kind of like
Yeah, no, I get
like
that.
I've like I like VA. I think like he needs to be like maybe care forward, maybe like not that he's not care forward, but like
No, I get it.
when you're in the playoffs and you're Vernon Adams, who's like the franchise quarterback, a guy that like you can tell wants to do it, wants to win, right? Like you can like when he's doing like the like go Lions after every interview and stuff like that, you can tell how much he loves his team and wants to win. But I feel like in the big time moments, you don't need to always put pressure on the quarterback, and this goes for anybody. Like this is how I feel, kind of similarly. I'm obviously Blake. I'm a way bigger fan of Josh Allen, but in a way, I think the Bills, kind of to compare them, need to run the ball a little bit more to take stress off Josh Allen's shoulders, because they want to win so bad that sometimes you don't kind of realize what you're doing. So maybe you want to win so bad that maybe you make that throw that you shouldn't, but like you think that you can get it in that window, right? So you just maybe it's like trying a little bit too hard, which is your heart's in the right place and your mind's in the right place, or maybe it's your heart's in the right place and your mind's not in the right place. I just think maybe a guy like William Stanback is able to kind of take that stress off him. Obviously, he's comfortable with William Stanback coming over from Montreal, familiar with him. So I think William Stanback is the key. I think he's going to throw it all over the yard once again. Jordan Maximic at him will cook it up. I have Vernon Adams. Who do you have as MOP, Blake?
So this is something that I thought heavily about. I admit I did have Vernon Adams, but now I'm deciding if I should make my MOC and my MOP the same player.
If I'm thinking who it is, I'm liking it. So
And
keep going.
I think I might. I'm going to say that Tyson Philpott is going to be the MOP from the Montreal Alouettes. Of course, Tyson made the Grey Cup winning catch a season ago. Of course, his brother Jalen is returning from injury this year for the Calgary Stampeders. And fun fact, they're younger than I am, but Tyson and Jalen went to a school not that far from my house, actually, in
Siakam
high
secondary.
school. Yeah, they did. They both went to Siakam. So I coached against them. I believe my first year as the HIAC statistician. Tyson and Jalen were grade 12 that year. But yeah, I'm going to say that Tyson Philpott is the MOP. And I guess I kind of spoiled it. I'll say he wins the most outstanding Canadian as well. And I'll go a step further and say that he wins MOP by going off for over 1,500 receiving yards this year.
Blake, I love it. Brian says that is bold, and I agree, but I love it because we are a talk show and we need things to talk about. So talk about it in the chat, folks, because that is bold, but I love it because one, it's a Canadian. a guy that I'm a fan of, a guy that's from obviously the Lower Mainland, like you just mentioned, a guy that, like yourself, I actually, when I was coaching with the NDSS Islanders, coached against him as well when I was offensive coordinator of the senior team, and I believe it was, when did they go to Calgary? 2017 maybe or something like that. So maybe
Yeah,
28
about
or
that.
2016 or 15 or something like that. One of those 2 years. And they were arguably some of the best high school players I've ever seen. So I knew from that day that they were going pro, whether it was NFL or CFL. Obviously, they have landed there. And I would agree that I think Tyson's going to have a big year from that confidence catching a Grey Cup winning catch. I don't think that he's going to have, obviously, an MOP, else I would have predicted that. But I love it personally. My runner up, because I thought you were going to have VA, I think Brady Oliveira could potentially have an MOP like season,
Yeah,
but
no, for sure.
why I didn't go with him honestly was because I thought if he didn't win it last year, excuse me, if he didn't win it last year, how could he win it this year by like maybe less numbers? Because I think it's gonna be hard to do what he did last year once again. So ultimately, I went with VA because I think VA is going to lead the league in passing. Maybe that's a spoiler. I think he's going to have a lot of touchdowns once again, and I think he's going to clean up that interceptions because I don't think he's going to have 6 in a game.
Yeah,
So
I was gonna
I
say
think he's going to
6 in
be
a game hurt him.
yeah, so I think he's going to be those are going to look a little bit better. And I got VA winning MOP slightly over Brady Oliveira having another good season. You obviously have Tyson Philpott as your MOC. I I guess maybe if you want to say maybe I guess kind of contradict myself because Brady Oliveira runner up for MOP should probably win MOC. I actually didn't put Brady Oliveira in. I have Keon Schaefer Baker out of
Wow,
Saskatchewan.
from the
So
Riders, yeah.
maybe two bold takes, but MOC this year I have Keon Schaefer Baker, Saskatchewan Roughriders receiver. I think he's gonna have a big time year. I've been a fan of Keon Schaefer Baker, obviously out of the University of Guelph in Ontario. I think him with Trevor Harris is going to do big things. Obviously, he was hurt coming into the season last year. I believe had some hip surgery. I believe he was out till August, if I'm not mistaken. So I think Keon Schaefer Baker wins MOC. And to be honest, Blake, I went back and forth on Javon Katoy or Justin McInnes. I
I
couldn't be
figured you
that.
were gonna say Javon Katoy.
I couldn't be the homer. I couldn't do MOC and MOP as BC Lions. I had to uh, not pull from the stars, but I just thought, I'm looking around for Canadians. I definitely thought about Tyson Philpott, but I thought, you know what? Personally, I think Keon Schaefer Baker is, for my money, I'll go and say it probably, in my opinion, and now this is my opinion, folks. I think Keon Schaefer Baker is probably the best Canadian receiver in the CFL. Now, obviously, you can say different. Curly Giddens Jr., whoever you want to name, maybe Nick Dembski, Javon, Justin, whoever you want to name. Yeah, I appreciate it. Brian, KSB, true breakout year. I love it. I'm telling you right now, folks, Keon Schaefer Baker, if you haven't already, he is about to come on the scene of the CFL and absolutely blow things up with Trevor Harris. If you didn't see it, also, Blake, I don't think if you've seen it as well. I shared the Keon Schaefer Baker highlight on our YouTube Shorts feed.
I did, yeah.
11K views. So Rider fans are loving it. Keon Schaefer Baker, folks, is on the verge of breaking out and popping off. So let's get to defense, most outstanding defensive player of the year. I will go first, Blake. I actually have maybe not off the board, but someone that you probably weren't thinking of. I have linebacker from the Toronto Argonauts, Winton McManus, winning
Okay.
most outstanding defensive player of the year. Was hard to find a pass rusher. Thought about for a second, clean sweep. Vernon Adams, Vernon Adams, MOP, Javon Katoy, MOC, and Christian Covington as most outstanding defensive player of the year. I couldn't do it. I think Christian's going to have a big impact this year, but I don't think his sack numbers are going to be up there to win that award. So thought about some pass rushers around. Ultimately, just didn't love who I was picking from. So I went from linebacker. Obviously, it's been a few years. I believe the last linebacker to win was Adam Bighill in like 2019, if I'm not
Mm-hmm.
mistaken. So I think if Winton McManus can have, maybe a 100 tackle season, 4 sacks, maybe 4 interceptions or something like that. Some forced fumbles, maybe 3 or 4 forced fumbles. I think he can win MOP, or excuse me, defensive player of the year. Obviously, Brian Lorenzo Malden to win it once again, maybe. But Blake, who do you have?
Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned. I'm gonna go with Christian Covington.
I
Um,
thought you were, yeah.
yeah, so he's Canadian, of course. So he's eligible technically to break Matthew Betts' Canadian sack record that he had
Can you imagine?
last year. I don't think he will though. I think he'll be somewhere around like 15, 16 sacks or whatever. But if he can mix in, 2 or 3 interceptions, something like that, from the defensive line, I think that would definitely be enough to get him into not only consideration but winning the most outstanding defensive player, and that'll be a BC Lion for the second year in a row.
I love it. I would expect big things from Christian this year. So let's quickly get through the passing leaders, and we'll get to our BC Lions schedule prediction. Blake, before we gotta get out of here, I got passing leader Vernon Adams. I got rushing leader Brady Oliveira, and receiving leader. I think you're gonna be a little bit surprised by this, Blake. I have Ottawa Redblacks receiver Dominic Rhymes leading the
Okay.
league in receiving. I think he is out to prove. BC kind of messed up, obviously, by not really kind of bringing more people in because they did the right thing. But, he kind of mentioned a little bit about, BC kind of like forgetting about him, like who he was and kind of stuff like that. So it kind of like he was just kind of putting out some a little bit like crossing the line a little bit, Blake, when I heard him on the I believe it was the Waggle podcast, if I'm not mistaken. So I got Dominic Rhymes leading the league in receiving. Blake, who do you got as your 3 leaders?
Jack, do you think we should go with Vernon Adams as our passing leader? He says he doesn't know that player, but we're gonna go with Vernon Adams as our passing leader as well. As our rushing leader, we're actually gonna go a little bit off the board. We're gonna go Kevin Brown of the
Okay.
Edmonton Elks. I liked what he did last year for a team that, for lack of a better term, wasn't good. At least with Taylor Cornelius as quarterback. Of course, they improved with Trey Ford, but not enough to make the playoffs. And then in receiving leader, I better go 3 for 3 with the bold takes after picking Philpott as MOP and MOC. I think Tyson Philpott will lead the league in receiving yards this year.
I love it, Blake. So you have VA Kevin Brown and Tyson Philpott. Okay, Blake. Let's get into it then, buddy. You got the schedule there handy of the BC Lions?
I do, yeah.
Okay, let's get into week 1, Blake. We're gonna have to do a little bit rapid fire, Blake, because Blake's gotta get out of here, and we have a guest joining us in 12 minutes, folks. Nik Kowalski, excuse me, from the BC Lions media team. Do it all for the team. Obviously, podcast host for the First and Now. You see him just pumping out a ton of content. Excited for Nik to join us here in about 10 minutes time. So, Blake, let's start with Toronto Argonauts, I guess, next week. Who do you got?
I got the Lions. I think there's just too many question marks with the Argos, and especially opening. I guess that closes opening week, but opening game for both of those teams. The media circus around Toronto is just going to be crazy. I think the Lions are going to go into BMO and start the right way. They'll be 1-0.
Okay, I got a win as well. Let's go to week 2, home opener.
That'll be the Lions again. There's just way too much going the Lions' way. 50 Cent, you can have your opinions on that. I have mine, but we don't have time to go over that right now. So I'll go the Lions. They'll be 2-0 after week number 2.
Okay, I got a win as well over Calgary. Let's go to week 3, Blake.
That'll be the Lions and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in an early showdown from, I guess, not IG Field anymore, but it's Princess Auto Field. And I picked the Bombers to kind of trail behind this year. I'll continue that trend. Lions, they're 3-0.
I got a lost. Bombers winning. So Blake, let's go to week 4.
The Edmonton Elks, who I picked to be the surprise of this year, but that's a Thursday night game. Maybe a potential for an upset, but I don't think it's going to happen. BC once again.
Yep, I got BC once again, 3-1.
And week number, what are we at? Week number 5 here. The Lions with that cross country visit to the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I'm gonna go with a loss in this game. Actually, Cole, the Lions had
Okay.
a lot of problems with Hamilton last year. Of course, the Tiger Cats walked into BC Place, blew them out, and then the game in October after that big Lions and Bombers games, the Lions had to win on a last-second field goal.
I love it. I got a win, Blake, over the Hamilton Tiger Cats, but we need to be different, so I'm a fan of it. So let's go to week 6.
Week 6 against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. What everyone predicts will be a much improved Roughriders team, but the Lions are too good, and especially at home, Lions 5-1.
Yep, I got a win as well, Blake. 5-1.
And then it'll be the Lions and the Stampeders once again. And again, we've already talked about it a few times here in the program. Jake Mayer against Vernon Adams. I'm taking Vernon Adams 100 times out of 100. Lions for the W.
Absolutely. I got a win as well.
And then we go to week number, I forgot what week we're even at right now, but
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
week number 8. So it's the Lions and the Bombers again. And also from Princess Auto Field. That's a Thursday night game. And for whatever reason, the Bombers on Thursday nights at their home field never seem to lose. I'm going to protect that continues. And they'll even the season series with the Lions.
Okay. I have a win, Blake. You have a loss. So you have the Lions at 6-2. I got 7-1 right now.
Alrighty, and then the Lions go to Edmonton on August the 11th. I will pick the Lions to win that football game and be 7-2.
I got a loss.
And then the Lions and Bombers finish their season series, which is really unfortunate to be completely honest, as they play each other 3 times in the first 10 weeks. But I'm going to go with the Lions to win the season series. We know how important that is, especially after last year. Lions are at 8-2, I believe that is, after that win.
Yep, I got them the same, Blake.
And then we start the home and home with the Ottawa Red Blacks. First in Ottawa, and a bit of a news break. I will be at that game in Ottawa with a couple of buddies of mine. But for that simple fact, I'm going to say the Lions win. They're 9-2.
Yep, I got a win as well. And
And
Ottawa the
then,
next week?
yeah, Ottawa the next week, touchdown Pacific.
Yes,
Victoria,
sir.
it's gonna be a sold out crowd. It's gonna be a lot of fun. And I don't think there's any way the Lions lose in Victoria. They're 10-2.
Yeah, I got the same.
And then, of course, their traditional Labor Day weekend bye, back after taking a year off. And then September 13th, they will host the Toronto Argonauts. And I believe Chad Kelly will be back by that game. The Argos at that point, nobody really knows what their record will be, but we expect that there'll be a better team with Chad Kelly behind the helm. I'll take a loss in that game. So the Lions are 10-3.
All right, I got a win, Blake.
Oh, I actually missed a game here. It's so I lied. The Lions aren't off on Labor Day again this weekend. It's September the 6th against the defending Grey Cup champion, the Montreal Alouettes, and I'll take a win in that game against the Alouettes.
Okay, I'll take a loss then, Blake.
All right, so we already did the Argos game. So the next game after a BC Lions bye, the Hamilton Tiger Cats pay their only visit to BC Place, and I think the Lions win that one.
Yeah, I agree.
And then they go for the clean sweep of the Calgary Stampeders, October the 4th. That's a Friday night. And I think they get that clean sweep of the Calgary Stampeders.
I agree.
And then the Saskatchewan Roughriders, or the Lions, I should say, pay a visit to Mosaic Stadium on October the 12th. You know what? I'm going to go with a Lions win at that one.
I'm gonna go loss, Blake.
And then the following week, the last game of the regular season for the Lions, I think our good buddy Jay pointed out the Lions have a bye in the last week of the season again for the second year in a row. Quickly, what are your thoughts on that, Cole, before I give the prediction?
I don't love it, Blake. Very unfortunate CFL, and we need the Schooners or whatever, or the
Yeah.
Cologne Okanagan Lakers or whatever the eating them raw guys were talking about. But we need a 10th team.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't like it either because I'm going to predict a Lions win for the simple fact that I think they're going to need a win. Or actually, no, sorry. I said the Lions were going to win against Saskatchewan. I'm going to predict a loss because I think the Lions will have already wrapped up first place by that point, or at least I
Yep.
hope so. So I'm going to predict a loss to the Montreal Alouettes. And I agree. It's also unfortunate because if the Lions do finish first and get that bye, then it's a 2-week bye instead of just the single week. So I
Gotcha.
too wish the Lions played in the final week of the regular season.
Yes, very, very tough. Very unfortunate for the CFL. But that concludes it. Am I not right, Blake?
Did you give your prediction for that game?
Montreal.
Yeah,
So it was Saskatchewan, Montreal to finish, right?
yeah, that's correct.
I have a loss to Montreal.
Okay, so we both have losses. So quickly,
So
did
you had a win versus Saskatchewan and a
I
loss.
did? Yeah.
Okay.
So what's
So
I lost track. What's my prediction of the Lions record here?
1, 2. So you predicted 15-3 Lions
Let's
record is what
go.
Blake predicted. I obviously stuck to my 13-5. I probably would have changed a few wins and losses if I was able to see it from a bigger picture, which maybe I should have. But I had 13-5, obviously, 2 losses to end the year. Lost to Winnipeg, lost to Edmonton, lost to Saskatchewan, and 2 losses to Montreal. Can't believe it. But next week, Blake, we talk real football. We talk about real games coming up. But before Blake has to take off, Blake, we are up into triple digits, buddy. 102 people tuning in right now on Twitter, on YouTube. So greatly, greatly, greatly appreciated. Please, folks, smash the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell when you guys do. You guys will get a notification every time we go live. Blake, I will send it back to you, buddy, and you can sign off.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn the camera off. Unfortunately, I gotta dip out early, but I'm actually gonna keep my audio on until I get to the rink there, Cole. So I might pop in there for a minute or two.
Sounds good, buddy. Appreciate it, and we'll see you next week, Blake.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Perfect timing, though, folks. Time to talk a little BC Lions football with a friend of the podcast. Been waiting for this. Been waiting to get this guy on the pod for quite some time now. I believe making his podcast debut, actually, but he's a big-time podcaster himself, host of First and Now, obviously. Doing it all for the BC Lions media team. You can find all of his good work over there. But let's head to our guest right now. Let's bring him in. Nik Kowalski from the BC Lions. Nik, thanks for joining me, buddy. How are you doing?
Doing great, Cole. Happy to be on, and it is my debut. But when you're getting guys like Julio Caravata and all those folks, and they come first, they come before me. So you get the big names out of the way, and then I'm happy to come on.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you. I know you probably, I believe, just getting home back from Kamloops, so enjoying being back at homeland. So I appreciate you jumping on the pod tonight. And I know you've been looking forward to chatting some football and just with the season here. Blake and I were obviously chatting. A week from tonight, we will have CFL football on our TVs. waiting to enjoy. So just that time of year, just excited to talk some Lions here tonight, buddy. Obviously, you've been up in Kamloops covering camp and stuff like that and putting out a ton of good content. But before we get to that, wanted to talk a little bit about kind of what's going on with the team and stuff like that. Obviously, you joined the organization, I feel like, at the right time. I believe you came into the picture after COVID. I'm not too sure. I believe the 2021 or 22 season. Um, you come in, obviously winning a lot of games than in recent history. And then Amar Doman kind of buys the team, and the boom with the market and the community, the city, I guess I would say the province as a whole kind of just ignites, and the fan base is really just bought back in. And can you just speak about kind of how exciting it is to work for this team and just everything that kind of the team has built over the last 3 or 4 years here?
Yeah, like you said, definitely the right time to join. My first week was in January of 2022. So Michael O'Reilly would have retired the week after I joined the team officially. So I made the move out here from over in Manitoba. But like you said it as well, it's a great organization to work for. You know, they believe in us to put out the great content that we do, and it's always a team effort with us. It's not just myself or Matt Baker or Liam Thompson that you see. It's our graphic designers, our brand managers, which is, I'll give them shout outs, Hillary Romans and Janelle Kent. Carter out in Winnipeg for us is another graphic designer we have that's remote, but he does a great job in putting everything together. And then it obviously comes from the top too with Amar Doman and Dwayne Vanu. Should get a ton of credit for putting the energy back into this market and this organization too. He's done such a good job, and he's so good to work for, so respectful of everybody, and just makes you want to be passionate about this team, because you can tell that he is from the top, right? And it definitely stems down. And then even the operations too, like you fans, the BC Lions fans or CFL fans in general, you guys see all the all access content that we put out with the locker room speeches, draft night where we're right in there, I'm right in there. And that's something we obviously have to run by Rick Campbell, Neil McAvoy, and all of those folks. And not only do they give us the access, but when we do send them the drafts, they almost always say, yep, go ahead, like good by me. And it's a trust that definitely I've worked on, and others around Liam, Matt, we've all worked on to establish with our operations and all of that to be able to even put this content out. But I mean, it's just a great organization, and it's a great time to be a Lions fan. It's a big season. We're calling it our biggest season ever. So it's definitely going to live up to the bill.
So let's talk about this season. Let's I guess let's do it in order. Obviously, we have the big news this week. 50 is coming to the concert kickoff. Obviously, we had One Republic, LL Cool J last year. Obviously, you were up in Kamloops, able to shoot that cool reaction video and stuff like that. The whole team putting that together. So I guess just kind of how cool was that? Let's start with that, and just Amar kind of building on the concert kickoffs here in the last 3 years of not to disrespect One Republic or LL Cool J, but kind of like building up to a level to now it's a guy that's like a 50 world icon almost in a way, right? So talk about how I know excited you were, the organization was, and kind of the news of that breaking.
No, I'm with you. I would say it's fair to say 50 Cent is another step up in terms of the concert kickoffs. And I think based on the reaction of the public, it's definitely been a massive hit. And we kind of expected that. Obviously, we have to keep it under wraps, and it's very airtight, obviously, beforehand when we're prepping all the digital assets to go out for the announcement. But it's exciting to finally get that announcement out. I'm so excited for that game on June 15th. It should be just a massive crowd. I'm sure you've seen, or people have seen, that ticket sales are going super well. Upper bowl is open, and there's more sections opening in the upper bowl. So that's another aspect that makes this season really exciting. And yeah, like it's funny. We're just in Kamloops the other day. We're kind of, I was roommates with Liam at the TRU residence, and we're kind of just going back and forth between 50 Cent songs, just naming, oh yeah, this one and this one, and then there's this one, and like we're going like How We Do, and then there's Hate It or Love It, but then there's also like the major ones like Into Club and all that. There's like 21 questions. Like it's just going to go on and on and on. And I always think the coolest thing about this concert kickoff is it's not like any other really concert that you see in a sporting event, right? Like LL Cool J goes for like 40 minutes last year. 50 Cent's going at 3:00 this in 2 weeks there, and the game's at 4 o'clock. So it's not just like a, even the halftime shows where they're kind of extended to 15 minutes. Like these are like 30, 40-minute performances. I think that's such a cool aspect of it. I mean, the prices speak for themselves. It's the best deal in town for a sporting event, a major sporting event, a big game at that. But then you also get a concert attached to it, not just any concert, a long concert. So it's a credit to what Amar's vision is with this team, and it's definitely worked with getting the buzz and with the BC Lions back, and getting that big crowd to open up the season.
Yeah, man, super, super excited for June 15th and coming over and experiencing that atmosphere. I would imagine it's going to be unlike any, and probably just building up to what we have obviously in store this season. But then obviously something that's super cool for me here on the island, we have Touchdown Pacific as well. I know you kind of came over to Victoria and kind of checked out the scene and checked out the island stuff. Like, what can you maybe tell Lions fans that they can expect? I know that the organization is planning to come over a few days before and kind of treat it like almost like a mini Grey Cup festivities where there's like activities and stuff for families and kids to enjoy. So how excited for even CFL fans, I guess, in general, be for that event?
Well, very excited, obviously. I mean, it's kind of a one-of-a-kind event where like the BC Lions are putting this on. In the past, where it's been the Touchdown Atlantic Series, that's been a CFL event, right? Whereas this is a BC Lions game. So this is something that I know Dwayne wanted to do for years and years, to finally bring up a regular season football game out to the Vancouver Island. And it's an amazing city too, right? I got to go to Victoria, I think in April of last year for the first time ever. And then we went back for the announcement in December, and just, it's such a fun city. The downtown's awesome. It's beautiful too, obviously, with all the harbor and the water around. And it's going to be a really cool event. It's a baseball stadium that they're going to renovate and build all these grandstands into to make it 14,000 plus attendance. And the CFL and TSN panel is going to be out there. There's, like you said, the street party down at the harbor the 2 nights before. I'm sure there's more stuff that's going to pop up. It's going to be an exciting game too, right? Like, we're even talking about like Dominique Rams will be returning to Vancouver, BC, I guess, for the first time ever since his departure this offseason. So it's a lot of interesting aspects into it. It's definitely going to be one of those games where you'll remember for a lifetime, right? No matter what happens, win or lose, it's going to be a fun event, and it's good. And to kick off Labor Day too, can't ask for anything better.
Absolutely. So last but not least, obviously we have the 111th Grey Cup here in our beautiful province of BC. I believe there's some like noise or rumbling that I believe Randy Ambrosio is coming into town for some announcement on Monday. So don't have to spend too much time, because I know it is months away and the excitement is already building. I believe tickets are on sale here, folks, in a few days. I believe June 4th, if I'm not mistaken. I know you guys put out a discount or a like pre-release code for fans that are wanting to purchase tickets that can go do that now. I believe it was for the Cup, no spaces. So talk a bit about that and kind of the excitement that's building. I would imagine there's maybe a concert or who's performing at halftime, not the concert, excuse me, but talk about the excitement of the 111th Grey Cup.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of we're kind of treating it like a shutout in hockey. You don't really talk about it until it happens, right? Because obviously the goal is to get there. But I like what Coach Eric Campbell says about it. Because he gets that question a lot. He got it today actually in his media seminar about like, is there any extra hunger and all that? And he says, I'm all for it if it motivates people to go the extra mile to get to this Grey Cup and eventually win it. But my thing is, I question if you don't feel this way every other season, like I'm questioning how you feel about last year. Like, why were you not 100% in to go win a Grey Cup last year if you're more motivated this year, right? And I really echo that take too. So while it's definitely an exciting and it's going to be a great event in Vancouver, the whole week, you got the zip lines going. Something I'm still surprised about being a newbie kind of to BC is the weather is always fantastic in here. It's not really winter. I know people from Vancouver will say the temperatures dip and it feels like winter, but trust me, the Prairie Grey Cups, and I mean 2 years ago in Regina, you wearing like parkas and it's minus 30. I'll eat my hat if it's that weather this year in November. So it's going to be warmer. we definitely got a good squad that has what it takes to get to that game and try and win it, right? So that adds an additional excitement, but also at the same time, I think the organization, the team, the leadership, like Vernon Adams Jr., Ryan Phillips, they're Rick Campbell, they're talking about it at the start of training camp and kind of taking a day by day approach, right? In terms of, we're not going to get there just by thinking about it every single day. We got to win the day first, build wins and build camaraderie, build chemistry, and all of that just to get to that point, and obviously get past some of these Western teams that we've been unable to get past these past 2 years.
I love the idea of treating it like a shutout. Let's just we know it's ahead, hopefully, and let's not talk about it until it happens. Yeah. So let's do that, buddy. Let's get into some football talk finally. And obviously, for those that were tuning in throughout the last couple of weeks, Blake and I were doing our season preview series. The episodes we broke into 2 with East and West. Obviously, we saved our BC Lions for last and for solo episode. So got Nik Kowalski on, who's been up at camp, taking in all things BC Lions. So can have a good word on everything Lions to talk tonight. So let's, if you don't mind, dude, I was just probably going to go quickly through the position groups, and we can kind of you can couple comments or whatever you feel, and we can get you out of here in 15, 20, if that's all good with you. So let's obviously start with the man himself, Vernon Adams Jr., obviously coming back to start at quarterback once again. Cool thing for me was the little Jordan Maximic clip from yesterday that he talked about kind of how last year they started from ground zero with VA and he came into his first training camp. That this year, him really understanding the playbook that much more, he was able to just evolve that much more, look that much more comfortable. I would imagine the game slowing down for him. Excuse me. Talk a bit about what you've seen with VA in terms of how he's looking on the field and just how much, I would imagine, confidence he's gaining in this offense in the year. Obviously, I guess maybe 2.5, if that's what you want to call it, or maybe 2 in a little bit of a season in 2022. So what's VA been looking like, and how do you think he's going to be doing this year?
I think VA's been exactly who you expect him to be, right? He's an excellent quarterback. I think he proved that to the CFL world last year, and he's definitely the leader of this team, the voice of this team, the heartbeat of this team, right? And he's someone who's we've asked him about this for our Arrow Up coming up, just to plug that for training camp. But we've asked him about the pressure that he's really had to deal with, and how, there is the Grey Cup this year, and that's a big milestone to get to in terms of pressure. But you look back 2 years when he comes around a whim and has to go into Calgary 10 days later and go into McMahon and win a game, and then he ultimately gets benched in the playoffs for Nathan Rourke. The pressure and the mental aspects and the mental adversity you have to get to come over that, and then last year he becomes the guy, right? And you get that full off season with him. But it's his first full training camp with Jordan Maximic as his offensive coordinator. And now this season, I can even attest to it myself. The second time you go back to Kamloops, you just feel more comfortable. You know what to expect. The routine is quite similar in terms of year to year, but your first year, it's obviously new to you, right? And even getting used to the new team is new to you, right? Because that was Vernon's first ever camp with the BC Lions organization. So the second time around, you definitely feel a lot more comfortable. You know what to expect. So that allows you more time to focus on the minute details of football, right? And that's something that Vernon Adams Jr. is a complete workhorse. So, you always hear the first guy in, last guy out mantra, and that's something that it's cliche, but he does it. When he says I'm going to be the first guy in and the last guy out, he actually does that. He's not a guy that talks. He walks the walk too, right? And you'll see him. I don't know if you guys caught this at one of the practices, but he's running gassers by himself, or even with Sean White a lot now, which is kind of funny seeing them after practice. But they run across the field every single day after practice. And Sean's more into the fitness, but that's something Vernon's been doing since he got here, right? And he's someone you want as your QB1, as a leader. The talent speaks for itself, but as a person too, he's all in. He's a really great guy to deal with. Like I said, a guy you want to have leading your football team. And I think even on social media, he just got off social media for training camp, but I told him one day, I was like, it's an air raid on social media. We're posting all your touchdowns from throughout camp. And there's a couple of balls I think you see. There's one where it was in slow motion at Justin McInnes in the kind of the middle back of the end zone. And that's one of those balls that all last season, it's almost jaw-dropping throws where how did he fit that into the window? And he also has the confidence to hit those windows too. And I think with these big body receivers, it only helps Vernon. And I'm sure we'll get into the receivers in a little bit, but I mean, these starting five, they look like they're going to be that same quality and caliber as last season.
I don't know if you saw, Nick, and obviously I'm a homer, but me and Blake did predict, hopefully, that there's an MOP season in VA's future, hopefully this year. So, that being said, we had obviously a little bit of news. Dakota Prue Cup obviously released earlier in the week. What can you tell us about, obviously, I guess two-part question here. What can you tell us about, number one, Chase Bryce as a quarterback? I believe that's his name. Yeah, Chase Bryce. You guys featured him on the Arrow Up last year as well as a guy that was a guy that I believe tried out one of those American camps, if I'm not mistaken. Correct, Nick?
That was Judd Erickson, I think you're thinking of,
Okay.
who was in our training camp last year. Chase came in around July of last year.
Okay, my bad. What can we expect from Chase Bryce? And is he a short yardage potential quarterback, or is that going to be a VA duty?
Chase is a guy that, he comes from a big pedigree. He was at Clemson, right? I don't know if you saw in the offseason, but he was back in Clemson University, and we posted some content with him, Gary Peters, and Dabo Sweeney all dapping it up at the Clemson inter-squad game. But Chase he has a big arm. He's more of a pocket passer, that's for sure. He's looked good in camp, though. He's not afraid to air it out, and he gets So how they do it is Vernon gets the first team reps, Jake Dolegala's getting the second team reps, and then Chase and Dakota Prue Cup are kind of splitting the third team reps. But in season, the third stringer doesn't really get many reps at all. So it was nice to see Chase be able to throw the ball, and he's definitely someone who's not afraid to take shots downfield. Consistently saw that throughout training camp. Fits in well in that room too. He's pretty well liked in the room. He's a I don't know how to describe him. He's not like loud, but he's definitely like a sociable guy. Nice guy too. But I'm to answer your question about short yardage. I'm not 100% sure about that. I'm sure we'll see more toward the week one of the season how that all shakes out. We did see Vernon handle those duties obviously at the end of the season last year. So they Rick today said that, or Coach Rick today said that he liked what he saw in Chase in the preseason. Obviously, he goes, I think it was 10 for 16 for 128, and that was his first game action in nearly 2 years coming up to Canada. And he's someone who stuck it out. I think a lot of fans should have respect for those guys who stick it out on the practice roster, especially the Americans too, right? Where they're taking a huge risk coming to Canada and not being a draft pick or nothing like that. It's really difficult to even stick around, as I'm sure we'll see coming up in these next couple of days when roster cuts are announced. But it's really difficult to stick around. So I respect Chase too for being able to stick it out and hopefully maybe now earning a roster spot this season. And I know a lot of fans have even questioned whether developing a younger quarterback at the 3 spot is a better option. It's obviously an option that all teams consider and all of that. So the team may go that way this year, but it was nice to see Chase slinging on Saturday in Calgary, put a couple of nice drives together in the fourth quarter there, and hopefully there's more of that to come. But yeah.
Yeah, he looked good in the preseason game for sure. So let's get to running backs quickly, Nick. Obviously, we had some news. Smoke Taquan Mazzell released earlier in the week. Personally, I was a fan of Smoke. I won't lie, and I thought he looked pretty good up at Kamloops when we were able to take in the scrimmage. I believe what we've been hearing, or Moj, I believe, reported is that the Lions asked him to bulk up, I believe, a little bit, and he actually came in lighter. So you don't have to spend too much time on Smoke, but I'm curious about the depth behind Stanback, if you don't mind talking about that. And obviously, Will is going to be the number one tailback this year, but long 18-game season. Obviously, we saw Smoke have to miss a few games last year, and kind of just the wear and tear of the position. Maybe you need a week or two off throughout the year. So, can you talk about the depth at the running back position?
Yeah, first and foremost, definitely sad to see Smoke go and wish him all the best. Coming in last season as a first-year American, I thought he did a good job too. Was willing to kind of do whatever role he was asked, do whatever it takes, and that's what you kind of need as a running back, right? You need someone that's going to stick their nose in and get dirty and not be afraid or anything like that. And I thought Smoke definitely fit that bill. But Will Stanback, he's a beast. He's a really nice guy. We've been doing a lot of content with him, great with the camera too, just to get that out there. So we're actually doing some stuff with him after camp wrapped up yesterday that you'll see in the coming months here. But I'm sure you saw at FanFest, he's he's a big guy, thick obviously, but he's also fast. Like it's only in team session and there's no tackling or nothing like that, so you can't really get a gauge for exactly how it's going to be in the real game speed. But man, when he breaks away in the open field, he looks quick, and for his size too is something that I haven't really seen around here in this past couple of years too. So that's exciting. I still kind of pinch myself sometimes and think we got Will Stanback this year. It's kind of a crazy thought that he's on our roster, but long-winded answer to get to the depth. Percy Aj Obese, that's how you pronounce his name. I finally got it down. Once the trick to pronouncing his last name is that it rhymes, so it's Aj Obese, so it rhymes. So he's definitely a speedster too. He's been getting a lot of reps. He's been in camp since day one. Unfortunately, neither of the two, him and Jordan Tyrrell, did much in Calgary they only had 3 and 4 carries, I believe, in Calgary, right? So they didn't get too many touches, but Percy's definitely looked quick in camp. And then Jordan Tyrrell is kind of the opposite. He's a big guy too, but he's got like tree trunks for legs, really thick down low. I'm sure in game action he's going to run hard, so that's something I think we can expect to see tomorrow at BC Place. But yeah, Will Stanback's definitely the guy, and we'll see how the other two shake out in the next couple of days. But it's been exciting too, and Percy's been fun to deal with too, fun to work with, so he's been nice.
All right, Nick, let's get into the receivers. And we have 2 new starting receivers that'll probably get slotted into the starting lineup. Can you talk a little bit about what you've seen from, obviously, Aiden Eberhardt and Travis, is it Fulghum? Can you talk about what you've seen from them at camp?
Well, those 2 guys have been with the Ones since day one. Both participated in a rookie camp, which pretty much means first year camp, right? I don't know if you can tell. I try to use the word first year because Travis Fulghum is a guy who had 500 yards in 5 weeks in the NFL. He's not a rookie, so I like to use the word first year for these players. And Fulgham's a guy who in rookie camp, like they usually do 5 plays per session or per like kind of rotation with a rotation of receivers or defense, everything, right? And quarterback. So I think Fulgham was getting like 3 or 4 catches of those 5 reps. It was pretty ridiculous right off the bat where he was definitely the guy Vernon and all the quarterbacks are looking to off the top. And you kind of just thought to yourself, yeah, number 8, he's going to be a guy this year. But you kind of expected that too. It's kind of, whereas Aiden last year was number 77. He was the guy who made you go, who is number 77? Because this guy is ridiculous. And then obviously we go to Regina and he looks like Brian Burnham out there getting drilled by 2 guys and holding onto the ball on several occasions. And Aiden's definitely picked that up too. He's a guy, I don't think he would call himself a burner, but he's someone who finds himself open, whether it's route running, intelligence, all of that, right? And his hands are really strong too. We've like I just said, we've seen him come down with a lot of contested catches, and the team is definitely hopeful he'll take a step this year into a larger role with the departures of Lucky Whitehead and Dominic Grimes. But I mean, they're big guys too. Fulgham is a tall receiver, kind of can go over the middle. I would say kind of catches balls wherever on the field, do whatever job you need him to. It'll be exciting to see him tomorrow too. But yeah, those are the 2 that have been with the Ones so far. And then this is a question I actually asked Jason Tucker, is that, I mean, in Skelly drills and in team drills, especially Skelly or even one-on-ones, the receiver always has the advantage over the DB, especially in those one-on-ones, right? And over at camp, you've seen everybody, Devin Ravenel, Jeff Cotton, Jalen Sample, Stanley Berryhill, the list goes on, Taylor Grimes. At one point in camp, you've seen every guy make a nice highlight reel catch. And I asked Tucker about this and I said, how do you kind of like differentiate or evaluate or rank these guys when they're all kind of like, they all show moments? And his answer was, well, I expect you to make those catches. Like that's your job as a receiver. But what I'm looking for is consistency, like getting to your routes in the right time, doing your correct blocking assignments, footwork, all of those little details, right? That's why we're as fans or we watch the game and they actually coach and evaluate and have to make these decisions for a living, right? Because they understand all these things to a whole different level than we do, right? So I thought that was interesting from Coach Jason Tucker saying that as a receivers coach. And I mean, a lot of these guys are still around too. Colton Meiko's another interesting guy. He's a
shout out CGFL.
Yeah, local guy from Kamloops, a big guy too, right? Listed at 6'4". He's a pretty big dude. So he's going to be dressing tomorrow at BC Place, which is exciting. And I think another kind of slept on aspect of this training camp is that obviously Terry Williams is the returner, but all training camp there's been 3 of these first year receivers getting the other return reps, and that's been Stanley Berryhill, Edward Lee, and Devin Ravenel. So those 3 guys, Berryhill, I think all 3 did get returns. Berryhill and Ravenel for sure did in Calgary. Berryhill did most of the return work in Calgary, but that's another. I think that's definitely another avenue if you're a first year guy and you're looking to make a path to a roster spot or a practice roster spot or whatever. That's definitely, if you can be the best returner out of those 3, I think that's definitely a route that has to give you an advantage, right? So, I mean, if one of those guys breaks out a big one tomorrow, it's probably going to do them wonders.
Special teams, baby, it'll get you on a roster. But going back to what Coach Tucker said, that's really cool. And I think Aiden Eberhard, what jumps off to me is just like reliable. Like he seems like super reliable. He's going to be at his mark. He's going to run his route. He's going to catch the pass. He might not be a burner like you mentioned, right? But if he can get deep, we saw it in the scrimmage up there in Kamloops, right? Getting behind a defender, scoring that touchdown. I believe it was from pass from BA. So you guys have been putting out a few some content of him as well, making plays up there. So I'm excited to see him with the ones here in the regular season. Obviously, we saw him, like you mentioned, in the preseason. So when real football comes here next week. So can you talk a bit about the Canadians? I guess, and maybe Alex would kind of be in this category as well. But the leadership that's kind of left that room a little bit. Obviously, Javon and Justin have been in that room for a little bit, but with guys like Dom and obviously Brian retiring a few years ago, but also Lucky, who's been a boisterous guy in that room as well. Can you talk a bit about, because obviously I got to chat a little bit with Javon and Justin up in Kamloops, and I feel like they're super ready to kind of take on this role of being leaders and stepping into their shadow, I guess, if you will. Can you talk what you've seen from them? And I feel like I put it out there. I feel like they're going to go for 2,000 yards seasons as Canadians. So what are your expectations from them, those 2 this year?
Yeah, they're definitely getting more of a leadership role kind of by default, right? And I think they've earned the right to step into those roles. And even last year, the receiver room, it's there is a guy like Dom Rhymes that we always post to in the rah speeches, and he's obviously departed. But I think at the same time, all of those guys contribute vocally, and not just vocally too, by example, right? I know something Justin McInnes talked about this year, and it's something that I've witnessed throughout my 2-3 training camps here now is that whenever they catch a ball in practice session, all 5 receivers run into the end zone, high five each other, and walk back. And that's something that I think it started, I might be wrong on this, but I think Brian Burnham brought that into this last era of the Lions receivers. And I'm sure Brian got it from somebody before, but Justin McInnes talked about carrying on that tradition. And that's just kind of I think the whole aspect of that is just to have that mindset of we're going to the end zone, right? And another forgotten about aspect too, I think it is a really interesting topic to bring up this year in terms of the dynamic of the receiver room and the leadership and all that. But a guy like Keon Hatcher is still around, right? Even though he's not on the field, Keon is a very vocal person, very motivating person too. He's been with the guys. He came out to the first couple of weeks of training camp. And whenever a receiver makes a big play, the first voice you hear outside Alex Hollins is Keon Hatcher yelling from his rehab session going on in the corner of the field, all by himself with TJ Lee and then the other injured players. So Keon's definitely been very vocal, and I think I'm at least trying to get this point across. I try and kind of show it in our content, and I think it's going to come naturally this year in terms of our content. But Alex Hollins is definitely a vocal leader too. We obviously see the goofy aspect of him, and he's always laughing and making jokes and all that. But when it's time to get serious, Alex Hollins does get serious, and he's someone who puts in the work too. It's why I talked earlier about Chase Bryce sticking around on the practice roster all last year. I mean, Alex Hollins, my first year, he was in the practice roster. He was one of these first-year guys. Right now, we're talking about who's going to make the team. Alex Hollins is in that conversation, makes the practice roster, is on the practice roster until October, and obviously comes into that game with Vernon Adams Jr. in Toronto as his first CFL game, and the rest is kind of history with him. He's one of the superstar receivers in this league already, right? And so I think Alex has already taken a leadership role too. He's definitely maturing, and these guys are going to do it by committee as well, right? It's kind of pick your poison, and I guess this is getting long-winded too, but you definitely one point I want to make too is toward the end of the camp, you definitely saw a guy like Travis Fulgham starting to get more comfortable and more vocal with not just receivers, but the rest of the room too. The DBs and receivers always have that friendly competition where they're drawing at each other. It's really funny because they're always like talking trash, and then like the play will end and they'll be like, love you, and kind of walk away. And it's really funny just to kind of get that dynamic where they kind of just like do a 180. But like Fulgham's a good example of, like he was talking trash toward the end and kind of giving it to the DBs, but then they're all laughing and smiling and dapping up after, and it's all like that friendly competition too, right? So I expect Travis too to, come in and use his NFL experience and his professional experience to the team's advantage too.
Okay, last on offense. Let's get to the O-line, and I believe everything's pretty much certified lockdown except for the left guard position is what Coach Campbell said today that, he hasn't named a starter in David Neville, Andrew Pearson quite yet, but I guess what have you seen from that battle, and just, I guess, what are you looking forward to on the offensive line? It's good, obviously, bringing back 4 other guys, 4 veterans, and I think they're going to be a huge start success, obviously opening up run lanes and giving VA enough time to sling the ball around the field. So talk about the offensive line.
Yeah, it's pretty similar to what it was last year, right? And I think that continuity speaks a large role. Like especially you look at a team like Winnipeg or a team like Toronto now, like it's the same guys kind of running it back, right? And I think they'll attest to that helps with being a better unit overall. And the tackles, obviously, Jarrell Broxton and Kent Perkins. It's nice to see Jarrell getting some of that love for kind of getting into that upper echelon all-star kind of level. I think he probably should have been an all-star last season, but unfortunately, if you're not too well known yet, that's how the cookie crumbles kind of thing. So hopefully we can get get that bandwagon started for Jarrell Broxton to be an all-star this season. But Slick Chung and Michael Couture obviously come back as Canadians, and then like Coach Campbell said today, like you mentioned, the left guard spot, he said it's not won yet or not solidified yet, but it has been David Neville with the ones pretty much all training camp. Chris Schluger has been a guy who's been getting the second team reps at that position. And then obviously there's guys like Andrew Pearson, Tyler Packer. They've been getting some center reps while Michael Couture was a little banged up throughout camp. But Couture obviously back in and playing tomorrow. There's George Una, obviously the first round pick from this year. He's got a little feisty to him. He actually, again, to tease a bit of arrow up, he actually gave the breakdown at Calgary at halftime. He broke it down for the team. He stepped in. He's like, I think VA, because VA is there, right? But he's not dressing. So VA kind of goes, hey, we need a break. And it's George Una stepping up and being like, let's go win this game, boys, like all fired up. So it's good to see him. He got a little bit of a feistiness to him, which is obviously good in the offensive line area. And then there's still a couple guys, first year still around too, right? And I always say I'm not going to pretend to be no offensive line expert by any means because I'm not, and I leave that responsibility to Coach Bates and Neil McAvoy, Rich Campbell, all those guys. So when the roster transactions finalize, that's how we'll find out, and I'll leave it to them to be the experts.
Absolutely. So if you don't mind, Nick, hold you a little bit longer. Do you mind going to the defense a little bit?
I'm all good here. I mean it when I say, again, I'm like VA. I'm not just talking the talk when I say I love talking CFL. I'll talk it all night. I'll walk the walk.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, buddy. Let's go to the defense. Let's go to the D line. We can break this, I guess, into 2. Let's go with, D tackles versus D ends. If you want to start with D ends first, I really enjoyed what I saw up in Kamloops with Pete Robertson, with Sione Tihema. I posted a little clip on Twitter of them kind of communicating when they came to the sideline and kind of Pete walking through some stuff or just teaching him, mentoring him, that kind of stuff. So talk a bit about that relationship and what you can expect from those two, but also, I guess maybe personally a little bit of concerns of kind of who's behind them and kind of the depth at that edge rusher position. And I guess we'll start with the ends, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sione Tuihema has been one of the more underrated players in the CFL these past 2 years. Like, I think people forget. You remember that first home opener, the first coin to kickoff? He had 3 sacks in that game. That was his first CFL game ever. And he's been someone who's contributed 15 sacks, I think it is, in the last 2 seasons combined. So he's someone who's delivered as a pass rusher. But he's on that quick end spot now too, right? So he has more of a run responsibility. I think he's a pretty good run defender too, obviously being at that position. And then Pete Robertson, I mean, I think the common message around here is we're just happy that guy's on our team now, obviously, kind of wrecking havoc in Saskatchewan against us and Winnipeg and whoever else these last 2 years. So he's someone who definitely shows a lot of sack potential too, right? And really from day one, our training camp reports that we did every second day. The first day of camp, we decided to do Pete Robertson and Deontay Evans because of obviously them being new vet acquisitions on the defense. So my job essentially is just to go get footage of Pete Robertson and they're on their first full day of practice. There was a lot of kind of install portion going on. Like Pete Robertson literally has like the playbook in his hand, and he's talking with Francis Bemmy, and he's kind of teaching Francis Bemmy. You can see this some whatever tricks about their pass rushing techniques and everything like that. So he's someone, yeah, he's been vocal. Definitely using his wisdom, his experience. I had no idea that him and Ryan Phillips were close before this. That's a connection I had no idea about, and I think that's cool. It shows it attests to Ryan Phillips' likability and obviously his coaching style. That P. Robertson saw that and said, "Hey, I want to come to BC to play for RP as my DC." So Pete Robertson and Sione Tuiama, like pass rush, they can kind of do it all. They're both mean guys too. I like that about them. They've definitely crossed the line once or twice throughout their careers, and obviously you wanted to get that all hashed out. But when they can kind of walk that line of being mean but also playing within the rules, they're both forces.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go to the D tackle position. I think we have the deepest D tackle room in the entire CFL. Probably five guys deep if we're being honest, right? And the guy that I know that you guys have been trying to push out there as well is that Josh Banks needs to get recognized for the good work that he does playing defensive tackle. Obviously playing specifically kind of where he does usually at that one tech, kind of getting double teamed a lot, doing a lot of that dirty work and stuff, freeing up a lot of guys around him, linebackers and stuff. And then a guy like Christian Covington is obviously going to come in and play in the interior. But you have guys like Marcus Moore, who's obviously been getting raved about at camp, Francis Bemmy, and then obviously Thibaut Tobaye as well. So could you talk about the five guys that are probably going to be in that D tackle, I guess, room, if you will?
Yeah, I think it's stronger with a guy like Christian Covington now starting, right? And I'm sure you've listened to Coach Rick Campbell's press conferences, same with Neil McAvoy, and they've definitely made an emphasis, and they'll say it out loud that they wanted to get bigger on the defensive line, on both lines. And a guy like Christian is just that, right? He's a big guy up at D tackle, someone who, by all accounts, everything you hear from him seems genuine, and that he wants to be here, he wants to win a ring, do whatever it takes, kind of play whatever role he needs to be. He's fit in too. He's a funny guy too. He's always wrecking havoc and, and having some laughs. But that whole D line is kind of like that as well. And then from there, yeah, it's pretty stable. Like the guys, it's not us saying Josh Banks is a force. It's the guys in that defense. They talk about how crucial Josh Banks is, and he's another guy that you look at him after the year and it's 10 tackles, 1 sack kind of stat line for the whole season. But guys will tell you he is one of the most important players on that defense just because of all the things you mentioned, taking up double teams, making the play but not the tackle kind of thing. Thibaut, again, high motor, good rotational guy, a global player too, so it checks off that box too. And I don't think it even matters that he's global. If he was global or not, he'd be playing on this team. That's something our management will tell you. Marcus Moore, back for his second season, he's talked about, again, like I said earlier, being more comfortable in that second go around at training camp. Someone who always just finds his way in the backfield too. He's kind of a bigger guy, but he's always finding his way right to the quarterback, and someone who definitely can get sacked from that defensive tackle position. And then Francis Bemmy was last year's first round pick. We saw in Calgary last week, he literally broke up a drive. He had a tackle for a loss on first down, and then a sack on second down. So that's something that, I mean, if you can get that kind of play from Francis Bemmy on a consistent basis, you hit it out of the park with a first round pick. And then Demetrius Taylor is also another name that's in the mix right now too. Just came to Kamloops last week, and will be dressing tomorrow. He's someone who's lined up at nose and played with the Detroit Lions last season. And then Jonah Tavai is also the other guy that's still around too, and he's been making plays. Kind of a fire hydrant, kind of like Stove Richardson kind of body type that has been wrecking havoc at times too with the second and third teams.
A guy that I kind of just forgot about, but that came to mind, Nathan Cherry. Is he, I believe, still coming off injury? I believe he tore up his knee last year, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't. When I was up there in Kamloops, I believe he wasn't participating in practice. Is Nathan kind of, or he's still kind of rehabbing that knee injury?
Yeah, I think I don't want to speak exactly on behalf of them, but I know Nathan. I don't think he's 100% just yet, and I know is they're trying to get him back in the summer, which is a very vague answer. But he blew his or tore his ACL back in August at Saskatchewan last season, unfortunately at his home stadium. But yeah, he's someone who's coming back for year three. By all accounts, is ready to come back and play this season. So that could that's a good point. Like you said, it's kind of like a little mid-season acquisition down the line, so that could play an important role too.
I feel like he was kind of like quietly having a pretty good sophomore, like a second season, and the injury kind of came at I feel like a bad time. But who knows if he's able to be healthy towards maybe after Labor Day or something like that. That could be a very very good addition for the Lions. So let's go I guess to linebackers and talk about obviously I guess maybe Josh Woods coming in. Ben Halak's going to be starting at linebacker. Bo kind of slides to that little bit more of a depth role, but Josh Woods. From what all we're hearing too, he could kind of step into maybe a star linebacker type role where he's really productive on the field. What have you been seeing from Josh, and what do you think about that tandem of him and Ben?
Well, they're best friends too, which is perfect. I think
Really?
that's what you want for the two linebackers too. Yeah, those guys are always together. Josh Woods and Ben Halak, they're always doing stuff together. So I think the expectation is that Josh will break out this season. We kind of did see it toward the end of the season, right? He gets that pick six in Hamilton, and then what do you have, like 12 tackles in that home playoff game, just everywhere on the field, sniffing out Kadeem Carey and whoever out in Calgary, right? So he's someone who's definitely ready to take that next step, and we're going to market like he is going to be a star player in this market. And I think he's all for that opportunity and going to be getting the start at middle linebacker tomorrow. Ryder Varga is also another guy who was dealing with an illness in training camp and now is going to be dressing tomorrow. So he's someone to keep an eye out for. I thought, like, I don't know if I want to put this take publicly out there, but I won't exactly make the comparison, but he's one of those guys where he gets like 10 for over a season, you'll have like 30 tackles, but you'll have 3 sacks and 3 interceptions and 3 forced fumbles and 2 fumble recoveries, kind of like that Adam Bighill statistic kind of line, right? Where you see Adam Bighill kind of doing a little bit of everything over the whole stat sheet. And I'm not making that comparison just yet. Obviously, Adam Bighill's had a legendary career, but I always kind of think of those guys where that's the first name that comes to mind is Bighill when you see a guy that's making plays on kind of in every facet of the game. And that's definitely something that Ryder Varga has shown, I think, in his time here in BC and even back in the U Sports level with Regina. And then there's a couple more first years out here. Ace Ely, number 41. That's someone I know they like. He's someone who's definitely physical, kind of walks that line in the team sessions too with his physicality, which is something you want to see, right? Because it kind of shows that he's itching to hit people out there, and he's someone who's going to get a lot of more game action tomorrow too. So, and then draft pick Terrence Gagne also around too. So I'm excited to see those guys.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see a full season of Josh and Ben. I think those guys are going to be, fast and physical and be flying around, and hopefully they're going to be able to be kept clean and really be able to make a lot of tackles and be very, very productive in that defense. So, I guess lastly, I guess I shouldn't disrespect special teams. We can maybe talk a little bit about special teams, I guess, if you want at the end. But defensive backs, obviously, TJ missing. Edward Cooper leaves in free agency. We got to see, obviously, at half, there seems to be some pretty good depth. Obviously, it seems like Marcus Sales will probably start at his normal position, but some guys that you guys obviously were mentioning about, Ronald Kent, I believe Santi Evans playing half. Can you talk, I guess, let's start about the battle at half first and who maybe will name that Lions fans should get used to seeing opposite of Marcus Sales.
Yeah, well, like you said, I think it's very safe to say that it's gonna be Gary Peters and Marcus Sales on the boundary or the left side or however they do it. Because I know or at least last season, they didn't do a boundary in a field, right? They did a left and a right, and that kind of spoke to the talent level of both Gary Peters and Jalen Edwards Cooper on the opposite side of them at the corner spots. But right now, I think they're kind of still experimenting with different looks, right? Like we've seen different looks throughout camp. I know the Moj reported this where Adrian Green's been playing some corners, then he's been playing safety, and then they've been putting Patrice Rene at Sam or Patrice Rene at safety and different looks like that, right? So I think
Coach Campbell kind of said that today, I believe, right? He didn't kind of confirm that Adrian was going to start at safety. I believe that they were kind of still working through some things.
Yeah, like they're just kind of I guess keeping all options or exploring all options, right? Just before the season starts. And I know Adrian, and Josh Woods, I think are kind of in that same role where they're kind of ready to take that next step and kind of break out this season. So utilizing Adrian in the most effective way, I think, is very important for this defense, and that's something that they want to make sure they're getting it right, obviously. So I think right now it boils down to there's that field corner spot right now. Jordan Perryman is going to be getting the start tomorrow. He's number 27. I know he led the team in tackles in Calgary last week at a couple TFLs as well. But I mean, week one, it was Ronald Kent working with the starters at halfback and Adrian playing corner. And that's because Marcus Sales is also not practicing. So it was Ronald Kent from the get-go. Then week two, it was a lot of Tyon Davis, who was actually released from the team after Calgary. So he was someone who was getting first reps too. And now it's kind of shifted to Jordan Perryman getting first team reps. So I think that's probably the number one battle I'm excited to see and how it shapes up. I'm sure RP and the defense and Rick Campbell are talking about it really closely, and excited to see what happens tomorrow because it's going to have a big effect on how that all shakes out. And then also it's funny because Matty Rugamba has that linebacker title. He's the SLB, the sound linebacker on the depth chart, but he's a defensive back by all means, right? And he's someone I've been high on from day one. Flies around, so much energy, always around the football, making plays, just finding a way to, make his impact on the game and on all of that. And he's someone I think, he's been an all-star the last 2 seasons, I believe. Most outstanding rookie back in 2022. And he's someone who I think his ceiling is most outstanding defensive player for this team. I think Manny Urgamba can really reach that level just because, he's someone who will get interceptions. He's so effective off the end when he blitzes, right? RP likes to send him on those blitzes, and he gets a couple sacks a season. He's always making tackles. He's a guy who can shift the game in a way for the Lions defense that positively affects them. So that's someone who I've been high on from day one, and I think he's taken a bit of a with TJ out, obviously Jalen Edwards-Cooper departing. I think Manny Rugamba is a guy who's also kind of in year 3 now, taking a bit of more of a vocal responsibility, a leadership responsibility in this defense too. And he's someone, it's funny too. He's pretty chill off the field, a little quiet, but then he gets on that field and a switch goes off and he goes crazy. He's yelling and everything, which I guess that gets him going. But it's always funny to see that you could tell when that switch goes on for Manny, and it's usually a good thing because that usually means he's about to make some plays.
Yes, a lot of juice, a lot of energy from Manny. And it's funny you actually mentioned him because I was just going back down the defensive backs little list here, and then I was like, oh, I guess he is considered a linebacker, like you mentioned. But I'm glad you brought him up. So I guess lastly, Nick, we can go through special teams if you want, but I think it's business as usual. Sean White and Flintoff should be, but I believe you and Baker were kind of talking a little bit about it, that we maybe potentially could see the global kicker maybe be kept on the practice roster, something like that. And I guess, is there still kind of a battle with Riley Pickett and the long snapper going on, or kind of, I guess there is stuff to talk about special teams wise.
Yeah, obviously it's not the most glamorous position and maybe gets overlooked a bit, I guess, especially when you have a guy like Sean White, because you just trot him out there and it's 3 points every time, right? So, but yeah, Sean White and Stephen Flintoff are back as the kicker, punter, holder duties. They've been managing that all season. Business as usual for those two guys. But Carl Meyer has been interesting. He's a bomb of a leg, big guy too. Really nice. We've been getting to do some feature work with him, and it was exciting to see him, go 2 for 2 in Calgary last week from the field goal duties, and then fire off 9 punts, I think, for almost a 50-yard average on those punts. So his leg definitely got shown off. It's funny too, when there was, I'll preface this with, there was some wind at McMahon Stadium before that storm rolled in, right? So it was a little windy out there, but when warm-up ends, the team ends the session by the kicker kicking a field goal, and then usually what happens is Terry would catch it in the end zone, and then they all do a breakdown in the end zone. Everything kind of got thrown off with the lightning delay because they came out and did like that 5-minute warm-up before the game started, but they still did that kick with Carl, and I'm under the assumption that there will be a breakdown. A breakdown didn't happen, actually. Stanley Berryhill was just in the end zone waiting for it, and then the rest of the team was on the sideline because the anthem had to get going. But my point is, Carl Meyer just bombed it right. There's like an LED board behind the end zone of McMahon. Carl Meyer hit it over the LED board, like past the end zone over the LED board. So it's only like a 40-yard field goal, but it just usually usually a guy like Sean White's hitting that right in the end zone. So Carl Meyer has a long leg. Interesting to see what kind of role he gets this season. Maybe it's I don't want to speculate at all, but hopefully I'd like to see him around. He's a good guy too, obviously. And then Kyle Nelson right now, the team has him listed as the lone long snapper tomorrow. He was brought in to be competition for that position. And Riley Pickett right now, I don't want to make any assumptions or say anything yet. That's not on the record yet, but Riley Pickett is listed as a fullback tomorrow. So we'll see how that all shapes up. That could make him transition him into more of a special teams role, or however it need be. Maybe have Kyle this year and develop Riley into a future long snapping role. I'm not sure, but that's what the depth chart this tells me tomorrow. So something to keep an eye out for. But again, Riley Pickett too on Saturday, 2 first quarter tackles on special teams. So he's someone who's came out stronger in this season too.
Super interesting. Good to know. I did not pick that up about the slight position change. Obviously, can get him on the roster maybe that way and get him active on game day. So that'll be super, super interesting. Forgive me, Nick. One more guy I want to ask you about, and rookie. Obviously, a guy that you mentioned up at camp, a guy that I became familiar with a little bit before he got drafted. But Christophe Boyu. Obviously, I wouldn't expect maybe for Lions fans to expect anything maybe in year one, but I think this guy's probably going to be, excuse my French, but us junior players kind of label these guys as STDs, not the STDs you're thinking about, special teams demons. And this guy has that written all over him. Maybe maybe a guy like Riley Pickett, who's some of these guys that are important to special teams. And, Mike Benavides, looks for these guys, right, to fill, prominent roles on special teams. The thing that I was tracking up at Kamloops, Christophe Bouillet, I believe, plays on 3 of the 4 special teams with the first teamers. So that's pretty safe to say he's going to be, probably on the roster, probably active on game day, right? So talk about what you guys have seen from him, because he's been obviously making a lot of plays and been talked about a lot.
Yeah, that's a vet move, seeing what guys are playing specials to see what kind of chance they have of making the team. I look at that too. I look at that too,
come
right?
on, buddy. Yeah.
That's a vet move. But yeah, Christophe, he's a playmaker, ball hawk. Like, he's been tested a bunch. I don't know if the quarterbacks are picking on him or anything like that, but it's been some good battles between him and the quarterback and the receiver, obviously, that he's guarding, because he's made a ton of PBUs. Got a couple interceptions in camp. One of the interceptions of training camp, I know we posted that one when one of those red zone periods the other week. But he's someone, he's in his first year, so you're gonna get beat every once in a while, but he's shown the ability to make plays. Make a play on the ball when it comes to him, downfield, short, whatever. Right? Someone who can kind of do it all, and I'm excited for him too. I'd say he'd be okay with me saying this. He's a very confident guy. We've also been doing some kind of feature work with him that the Lions fans will be seeing in the next little while here. But
stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. Yeah, but he's a confident guy. He knows he's a baller. He wants to go make plays. He wants to do whatever it takes, and whether that is special teams, whether I know RP and Rick have said that these Canadian DBs are the deepest they've ever seen here. So who knows what kind of role that'll find him in. And I mean, to kind of echo onto that Canadian DB aspect, the other guys we didn't mention, Sermon Bagayogo, Patrice Rene, Charlie Ringland. I know Patrice Rene is someone who a lot of people think can really make plays if needed, and if he gets onto the defensive unit, because obviously just playing special teams last year and doing a pretty damn good job at that last year, kind of under the radar. But yeah, a couple Canadians here too. Charlie Ringland again is another one who it's his first year here, although he was drafted in 2022, but had a knee injury that he had to rehab all of the season. So it's been good to see him out there too. He's actually a Winnipegger guy. I actually we played in the same hockey league growing up. We didn't overlap, but we were talking about it the other day about some of the hockey teams and guys we know over back in Winnipeg. So it's good to get that connection going.
That's super cool. I'm glad you mentioned the Canadians. Super cool. Nick, I'm going to try to bring Blake in for one last question if he's listening.
For sure.
So I think he's been wanting to. Before we get you out of here, Blake, can you hear me? And
I can hear you.
The floor is yours if you want to ask Nick any questions.
What's going on, Nick?
How you doing, Blake?
I'm good. When's our Arrow Up debut? You got some content of me and Cole up in Kamloops, so when's our Arrow Up debut?
When's it coming? I don't know.
I'm already in the Arrow Up, so it's not my debut.
When would that have been? Enlighten me. I actually don't remember. I
It
should
was
know
a
that.
fantastic.
You got me. Well, you got me a clip last year in the home opener at
I remember
the
that.
Edmonton game. Yeah.
I remember that. Oh, and then we included that in the Arrow Up episode.
Yeah. So I'm in there. So I'm already in the arrow up. But
I remember
what?
that from the we did like a kind of we had the music rights to "I'm Bad" by LL Cool J. So I think I'm gonna continue this tradition, but I like to do the overnight edit after the home opener. Bang it out, just make it. We have the music rights for all these artists, right? For select songs for only a select amount of time too, but try to use it to our advantage. So kind of getting on a tirade here, but I do remember that's why, because you were in the video for the home opener of the LL Cool J recap. I remember that, the street party.
Correct. So, Blake, anything else for Nick before we get out of here, and myself, because we're pushing 2 hours?
No, just Nick, what do you and your media team have planned for this year? You guys are some of the best in the CFL, so
Not let's not some of the best, the best.
you're right, the best. Sorry.
I appreciate that. You know what? This might sound super cocky, but I'll talk my talk too, and we can back it up. But I think as a team, we are the best. So I will
Top
echo that
top
too.
two, not two.
Yeah, exactly. But it's healthy competition. There's Edmonton, Ottawa. I love what they're doing. I love Hamilton's strategy too. So there's great teams. Winnipeg's great with socials. I know so they kind of piss some people off sometimes, but I think that's all fun. And it's at the end of the day, it's just social media, right? Just literally go log off if you don't like it, kind of thing, right? Walk away from your phone. But so they do a great job too. I want to say that about Winnipeg, although we've been in that little kind of beef with them, I guess you could say, online.
You
But
put on the Rangers game?
the big project we got going on right now is I'm gonna get right back to it actually after we're hopping off here. Is I'm editing Arrow Up, so we're doing a full training camp kind of documentary about Arrow Up. I've kind of been saying over the course of this last hour, like, oh yeah, we're doing some feature work on this guy, whether it's Carl Meyer or Christophe Beaulieu. So we're kind of just going to be recapping training camp and showing you what a training camp in Kamloops is all like. We got the privilege to go into some meeting rooms this year, so that was great. Again, like I said off the top, that's something that we have to run through Ryan Phillips and Jordan Maximic and Rick Campbell, and they give us the access to where I know not every single coach in the CFL would allow you to. So that's something I'm super excited for. It is a grind, though. Don't get me wrong. I know in our marketing meetings, I'm saying I'm a broken record, but Liam and I are editing Arrow Up today in our free time between all these different things we got going on. But trying to get that out end of next week. I'll put a little pressure on myself here to get this all out. Trying to get this out before our season opener, but that's the big one going on right now. Obviously, going to try and do a lot of cool stuff this year with our themes as we always do, and there's another kind of special project that we've started in about February that's still ongoing. It's not public right now. I'm going to keep it private, but I'm very excited for it. We are taking kind of that behind the scenes content to a different level that has never been done in the CFL. It has been done in other sports leagues, and I'll leave it at that.
Wow. Okay. That is a great way to end. Nick, thank you so much for jumping on for an hour. Tell this guy 30 minutes. He says, let's go for an hour. Let's talk some ball. Like I mentioned, bringing you in, man, it's been too long. I can't believe it took this long to make the podcast debut. Let's not make it that long before you hop back on. So let's get you on maybe sometime later in the season and chat some more. Nick, I'll give you the floor once again, man, and just plug anything that you guys have coming up, your social media, anything, First and Now episodes, Arrow Up. Obviously, buy your tickets to the home opener. Anything that comes to the mind, obviously support the team. It's not all just you, it's everybody around, everybody in the organization. So the floor is yours, my friend.
I felt bad thinking about this too, but one of the things I want to say at the top is when I was kind of name dropping our staff. I didn't mention my boss, Carolyn Cody. So she's someone who I gotta give her a shout out too. She's amazing to work with. Again, believes in us, allows us to myself, Liam, Hillary, Janelle, all these people to kind of come up with their own ideas and run with it. And someone who get whatever we need, she's there to help us out. So that's someone who makes a lot of these things happen that you see going on throughout the organization and all the fun new activities too, right? Another fun thing we got going on, anyone in the mainland here on Tuesday nights, BC Lions on Tap is back. So that's our live
Buddy.
radio show.
Come to the island.
We'll see what's in the works for Victoria when we're there for Touchdown Pacific.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
It's going to be 1 hour this season, which I'm really excited for. I know that's something we were all talking about. We got to make this 1 hour because it felt like we could just not get any thoughts out before the show was over, right? So that's going to be Tuesday nights. We'll be live at a different Molson pub throughout the mainland. The first 6 weeks, I think, are already out for the schedule. So that's exciting.
On a new radio station, right, Nick?
Yes, CKNW 980. I'm a newbie to BC, but I got that in my head. I know that station already. So shout out to CKNW. We're going to be on there. Moj and Julie are going to be doing their broadcasts on there too, right? So that's exciting. Like you said, First and Now is something that we're excited to be doing every single week. You know, kind of getting like you guys do all the great BC Lions access and content. And I think I want to wrap it up and say I appreciate you guys. I really respect what you guys do. I don't know if you guys know this about me, but I was doing blogging and content, whatever I could to just kind of get CFL content out there when I started first kind of going online with my stuff. I used to have a Winnipeg blog back in the day in like 2015, and I was just trying to grind it out and, you know, provide like exactly what you guys are doing, just provide CFL fans with as much conversation and content as possible, right? So I really respect and admire you guys, and, you know, being consistent and all that, and keeping it going and having big plans and, you know, being ambitious with all of that. So I really respect you guys, and like you said, you guys know where to find me, and happy to hop on and talk whenever.
Awesome, man. The respect is mutual, Nick, and we just thank you. Obviously, the busy schedule, taking a little bit of time to come chat some BC Lions, man. So we'll chat soon, buddy, and we will see you June 15th, I guess.
Awesome. Can't wait, guys. Back to editing I go. See you guys.
Awesome. Take care, Nick. Chat soon, buddy.
Bye.
Did the Rangers score?
All right. 127 people tuning in right now. Folks, head to the YouTube channel, please, and thank you. Subscribe. That would be so much appreciated. The support is appreciated enough for 127 people to tune in and enjoy Blake and I ramble for basically 2 hours is so cool. It's so appreciated. So if you don't subscribe, it's not the end of the world, but that would mean so much to Blake and I, because the more subscribers, the better. Stay tuned, folks. There's some things in the works. Some people, some companies potentially approaching CFF. So we could have some things that are maybe in the works here, some partnerships. So stay tuned for that. I won't announce anything. We'll tease a little bit like Nick. But Blake and I, just on behalf of Blake and I, man, are super excited to chat ball with you guys every week for the season. We are going to be making sure that we are consistently here for you guys on a weekly basis. We are going to announce here tonight, so hopefully everyone's listening, everyone's setting their reminders. Blake and I will be live every Wednesday. I guess this is a little bit behind the scenes, a little bit bad. We didn't talk a bit about this, but we're going to be live every Wednesday. Blake, what time we planning on starting the show? 5:30, 6 o'clock every Wednesday?
Yeah, that works for me. Let's go with 6.
Okay, we are going to be live every Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. You guys can get used to seeing Blake and I's faces throughout the regular season. Now, for whatever reason, if I come up sick, if I'm not able to go, Blake will be hosting the show by himself. He will be running the ship. Now, vice versa, if Blake cannot make the show, if work comes up, if, you know, Jack's sick, he can't, you know, he just, for whatever reasons, he can't make the show, I will be running the ship solo. Now, that being said, we do have some announcements. Shane Ray from 13th Man Sports will be joining the show once a month or every 2 weeks to chat some CFL football. We will be having him on during our CFL segment every show. So how the show is going to work, like I've been mentioning, we'll be talking 30 minutes BC Lions, 30 minutes CFL. And then when the U Sports season comes, we'll be talking 30 minutes U Sports as well. Until the time being, I would imagine it'll probably be like 45 minutes Lions, 45 minutes CFL, that kind of thing. Honestly, forgive Blake and I if it's like an hour BC Lions and like half an hour CFL. that's just the way it is. It's our podcast, so that's how it's going to go. But you will have CFL content on a weekly basis. Shane is guest number 1 that is locked in. We are in the works for having another 2 guests. Potentially, I guess I will just put it out there. Julio Caravetto will be joining us once a month as well. So stay tuned for that, as well as another guest that I'm going to try to have on, maybe a different guest every week of the show that you guys can expect. I'm going to put it out there, and hopefully it comes through. Blake and I will be joined by BC Lions starting safety next week, Adrian Green, on the show. So tune in next week, folks. If it's not able to happen with Adrian, I've been in contact with Matt Baker over at the BC Lions. He assures me that if Adrian's able to make it, he's able to come on the show, that we can make it happen. If not, there will be some BC Lions player on the show with us next week, Blake. So big things happening. That's how we're starting the season here on CFF, folks. So subscribe to the channel, please. It would be greatly appreciated. A long way of saying subscribe to the channel, because you are not going to want to miss a episode, a show this season. Blake and I are doing it bigger and better than ever, consistently bigger and better than ever. You will see us every week with guests. CFF, you can see the shirt there. 129 of you guys watching. Go comment, go tag Blake and I on Twitter, on the comments on the YouTube right now, on Instagram. Let us know if you guys would like some merch. As soon as the hunger starts to cook up some more, we will be releasing shirts, some merch, maybe hats to you guys, some other designs. So let us know. Let us know on social media, on YouTube as well, and we can make that happen. Blake, I will pass it back to you, buddy, for any final thoughts before I get out of here. As always, I like to just say, please, please subscribe because it'd be greatly appreciated. But we appreciate everybody for tuning in nonetheless. Blake, any final thoughts?
Yeah, let's just kick off the season and let's get to it. Week 1, a week away.
Absolutely, buddy. I cannot wait to watch football next week. 129 people. I cannot believe 129 people tune in to watch us stooges talk about football, but I love it every week, man. Nothing makes me more happier, and just can't wait for the season to get going. So we will see you guys next Wednesday at 6 o'clock sharp. Thank you guys for tuning in. Catch us on the next episode of the Canadian Football Fanatics.